Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and I've been asked a lot lately as to what my personal favorite build is, and I couldn't narrow it down to one. As much as I tried, I couldn't narrow it down to one build. So I picked 5 of my favorite builds, including this one, which was recent, that are extremely powerful, make the game a lot easier, and basically 5 builds that I had an absolute blast running through the game with, and I would say are my top 5 favorite overpowered PvE Elden Ring builds. Now, I'm not a fan of bleed builds in general, but somebody suggested me a while back to do a build on the Scavenger Curve Sword. Turns out they're awesome. I had an absolute blast doing an entire run on the max scaling of the game. That, by the way, all the videos here are going to be in the description for each build, and it was an entire run through the game, and these are fantastic. Not only do they proc bleed at a good amount with their innate bleed and the occult affinity, giving them additional damage. The damage in addition to the bleed is where it's really at with these. The Scavenger Curve Swords are excellent. They're awesome. They're incredibly powerful. They can absolutely shred the majority of bosses in the game, and even bosses that are bleed resistant, these do so much general damage that it makes them awesome all around. I had an absolute blast using these. The Scavenger Curve Sword for me was the best bleed build because you're doing a lot of pure damage on top of the bleed procs, which is a big deal and can help you shred some of the toughest bosses in Elden Ring. These are absolutely awesome. By the way, we're going to show stats, equipment, everything you'll need to know for each 5 of these. And if you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds or From Software games in general, definitely hit that subscribe button. So I included the Fire Giant and Mog. I thought they were really good clips. The important part and the smartest part about the Scavenger Curve Sword that I like is, even though you're not really doing more bleed, because the bleed, even with the occult, is going to be less than, say, the Twin Blades might proc, but the way bleed procs work is each bleed proc becomes more difficult than the last one. So if there's a proc of 300, it could then be 500, 700 for the additional future procs. For the instance of this, we get to do a ton of damage in between the procs and after when it becomes very difficult to proc bleed. So this build all around is absolutely excellent for bleed builds in general and for general just damage. They do a lot of damage with the jump attacks, each jump attack doing around 2,000, which is incredible. So for this awesome setup, we have 2 Scavenger Curve Swords maxed out. Any seal will do. We're using the White Mask, Claw Talisman, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, and then the consecutive attack tier will go well with this as well. So for the 150 stats, since we went for the occult affinity, I decided to go for 60 arcane, but if I could do these stats over again, I probably would have went with 80 arcane, and then minimum dex are a little bit higher on dexterity, because we're mainly scaling with arcane since we're using the occult affinity, giving us that additional bleed over the base bleed on top of the damage that's scaling with arcane, which is really excellent for this build and ultimately makes them very, very, very strong to proc bleed and do a ton of damage. Next up is the lightning build, which is a personal favorite and a ton of fun to do. Now, there is a video attached to this one. The build video has the build in it, but it also has a one-shot of all the main bosses on the max scaling of the game, which I was able to do because Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike is that good. It really is super powerful. It's the Comet Azure of Faith builds. It's incredibly powerful. As you can tell here with Radagon and Elden Beast, after just 5 tries, I was able to one-shot both of them without too much an issue on 1.08, and they went down very quickly with this very, very powerful build. And for people that were saying or just thinking that it's not consistent or it relies a lot on RNG, well, I'll tell you this. It took me about 3.5 hours to one-shot all of the bosses on the max scaling of the game. I wasn't going for a record here, but if you weren't going for one-shots, let's face it, this build could carry you through each new game plus cycle in 2 to 3 hours with ease. It does a ton of damage. Now, for this, we have the Golden Order Seal because it'll outdo the Gravelstone Seal's boost at about 80 Faith and 80 Intelligence, Seppuku Sword to bring your health down, Jellyfish Shield, Mushroom Crown and Black Dumpling, Lightning Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Red Feathered Branch Sword, Kindred Rot's Exaltation, Lightning Tear, and then we have Fetid Pots and Boluses to poison proc us as well for that damage boost. These are the stats at 300. They're not going to matter that much, though, in this instance, because it's the 150 stats are somewhere on my channel. I just couldn't find them for this video, unfortunately. So I get asked a lot why I don't use Commander Standard and Seppuku. It's because they both have really long animations, and I'm not that quick with stuff. I found my own buffing order that I like to do that's easier for me. The other stuff just honestly takes too long. Commander Standard will override Golden Vow. It's shorter and has a longer action duration, and Seppuku is the same as the poison procs, but I feel like I have a little bit more of a leeway or window with the poison procking. So I'm actually surprised that this one ended up in here. I ended up really loving the Wing of Astel. Somebody asked me on my channel, and if you want to comment below about this or any of the people that suggested, because I think somebody suggested the Scavenger Curve Sword as well. For this instance, somebody asked me to do a build for it. I believe they were in the Discord. I'll attach the Discord, by the way, too, if you want to talk about Elden Ring or just come hang out. Definitely join that. But yeah, somebody suggested this for a build. I was like, well, is it really that good? And then I tested it out myself. I realized that the Ash of War scales pretty much purely with intelligence and magic damage. It's highly buffable. It's very easy to use. It does a lot of damage when all the buffs are together on it, and the Wing of Astel is really an epic weapon. It turned out to be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this weapon. It's an awesome sidearm for a mage that keeps things interesting. It does additional gravity damage to gravity type enemies. It's just a great weapon. The Wing of Astel is a really fun one. Oh, and did I mention that it comes with a beam that doesn't cost FP? Yeah, it has a beam that you can shoot off with the charged attack that actually has kind of a medium range, and it's pretty cool. It does a little bit of damage too, and you can kind of buff that, and it doesn't cost any FP whatsoever. Kind of neat that it has that beam. It also has the Curved Sword moveset, and then obviously the Ash of War there, Nebula, which is really quite good and very damaging. For my favorite sidearm mages build, I have the Wing of Astel plus 10, any seal will do. Spellblade set will boost this, the Ritual Swords Talisman, Magic Scorpion Charm, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest, and then the Magic Tier. Now on the stats, it's all intelligence based. The Ash of War, from my own testing and just general knowledge, it seems to take all of its damage or most of its damage from that B in intelligence. So as long as your intelligence is high, if you're a mage anyway, you're going to get like maximum damage with the Ash of War. So just use this as a sidearm anyway, because it has such minimum requirements. I think you need like 17 dex or something, and then you could just pretty much go with intelligence and spam the Ash of War to do a lot of damage. Next up is a very personal favorite, and that's the fire build. The fire build on my channel, and I attached all these in the description, so all 5 of them are there, is excellent. You can absolutely destroy Malenia with the flame pillars, Giant's Flame. Take Thee is really good too, the giant fireball, and then it's just everything is so buffable. And then we get to use the magma blades too, and fortunately for us, the magma blades Ash of War scales almost purely with faith, so you can go with the minimum requirements there if you plan to just spam the Ash of War, which does a lot of damage, and you can do this entire build. And another good thing about this is, if you want to try this build and the lightning build, they actually have similar stats. Even at 150, you can kind of switch them on and off. Get to 80 faith, get the minimum requirements you need for the weapon, and you can spam the Ash of War for a lot of damage, do a lot of fire stuff, and then if you want to just change talismans and stuff, you can switch to the lightning build as well. And sure, the magma blades are notoriously hard to find in the sense that the drop rate is abysmal, but once you get them, and you don't really need 2 to spam the Ash of War as far as I know, I just like having 2 because it looks cool. They are excellent. They're worth actually farming for. When you do get them on your main character, they're highly damaging. They leave a lava pool below them, and the attack itself pretty much all scales with faith. High faith's going to get you a lot of damage on this Ash of War, and you're going to be able to shred bosses with this. Oh, and also, did I mention, it does pretty decent posture damage as well. You can posture break with these by spamming the Ash of War enough. I actually fought Malenia on another clip that I used the magma blades for, I think in one of the fire videos, and I was able to posture breaker or poise breaker, I think multiple times throughout the fight. It was pretty incredible. For this favorite build, we have dual magma blades. We have the Fire Monk set, doesn't boost anything but looks cool. Shard of Alexander, you can use the Black Dumpling, by the way, that I was showing here. The Godfrey Icon, Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, and then the Fire Tier as well. And you can also poison proc with Fetid Pots and Boluses if you want to get even more damage. Stats here, you can pretty much go all in on faith as long as you meet the requirements for the strength and dexterity that you need for the magma blades. After that, the Ash of War is going to scale with faith, and then obviously any incantations that you're doing that you can get boosted with the giant seal, and the dual seals will do boost, by the way. 2 seals will double the boost. You can pretty much go all in on faith for this build, much like the lightning build. Get a lot of faith, and then in return, you're going to get a lot of damage. Now, the last one here is a personal favorite, and obviously these are all favorites. These are my 5 favorite builds that I could think of as of lately, at least, is Marius Executioner. Now, this sword is incredible. It's honestly one of the most fun weapons to use. It's one of the legendary weapons in the game that's actually quite good. I know not all the legendary weapons are very good. They definitely don't all live up to the hype. This one does. It's highly buffable. Its Ash of War benefits from the consecutive attack bonuses, and it can absolutely shred bosses. It also benefits from the Godfrey icon because it is a charged skill, and you can do a ton of damage with this. And as you can tell with Mog here, you can absolutely obliterate bosses with this. It's incredibly buffable as well, and it's an awesome melee weapon. Another great thing about Marius Executioner's sword is that you can get it around the mid-game. You can actually get it right around the Atlas Plateau, and the Ash of War is going to scale primarily with, before it's being boosted by anything, the weapon damage itself. So the more you invest in Arcane and Strength, the higher damage output you're going to get on the Ash of War. And another benefit is Malenia could be an exception for a lot of different builds, and the lightning build doesn't even work well on her, for example. The fire build does, though. But for this, she is no exception. Marius Executioner's Ash of War will literally knock her down. It'll do a ton of damage to her, and honestly, it's very easy to solo her with this weapon. I've done it many times at this point. Just got to be careful for waterfowl in general, like you do with any build, but you can knock her down frequently, chunking her health for massive amounts of damage at a time, and continue to spam the Ash of War to absolutely destroy her. She's not very difficult with this weapon at all. Gives you a little bit of a challenge every time because it is Malenia after all, but this is one weapon that can absolutely destroy her, stack damage with the consecutive attack bonuses, and do a ton of damage in general. For this setup, we have Marius Executioner upgraded. Any seal will do. You can throw the Black Dumpling on for some extra damage. We also have the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Shard of Alexandria, Godfrey Icon, Melissen's Prosthesis is good too if you're not poison proccing, and then we have the consecutive attack tier along with the magic tier will boost this a little bit as well. As far as stats go here, you're going to generally want to invest as much as you can in Strength and Arcane. It's very much a split build, a little hard to do at 150, but it is doable. As far as the stats go, your primary stat's going to be Strength with a backup in Arcane, but it'll start to cap around 50 of each. Generally speaking, you're going to want to hit 50 Strength, 50 Arcane to do a lot of damage with this. Remember what I said before, the higher the damage on the regular weapon, the higher damage the Ash of War will have because it's mainly physical, so you're going to want to get that damage up as much as possible. And there you have it. There's my 5 favorite overpowered Elden Ring builds, at least recently, that I absolutely have been having a blast with, make the game a lot easier and are a ton of fun. If you're not subbed to this channel, definitely hit that subscribe button if you love overpowered PvE builds. There's a ton of awesome builds on my channel. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys there.